Hello and good evening, friends, and welcome to the regular season finale of Strictly Sports NFL Saturday. Week 17 is here. It all goes down tomorrow over the networks of CBS and Fox. Both networks will have doubleheaders and a lot of games with playoff implications. Other games, of course, meaningless throwaway games to determine draft positioning and all that. So, with that being said, I am your host, Anthony Florio. I am joined, as always, by good old MF Michael Fletcher. We are maybe awaiting the presence of Michael Bullock. If he comes in, we'll catch him up on what he missed. If not, then we'll hopefully have him back with us Monday night for Ridiculously Raw. Huge show there. We'll get into that later. But for right now, Week 17 is here, and we're gonna try our best to get through. Try to figure out how to get through these. I mean, we have meaningless games that we're going to get through first, and then we will get into the meat and potatoes of this, which is the games with playoff implications. So we're going to start with the games that will be meaningless, which means no implications whatsoever. And out of all these games, there aren't really that many. I think there's about at least I can see at least 4 to 5 out of this. So with all that being said, let's get started, and we will get into the games, the meaningless games first. And MF, I'm gonna need your help quite a bit because all these games are divisional games, and I can't keep track. So
all games, all these matchups are second matchups.
obviously,
Obviously, we just got to find out who won the first games. That's all, and then
exactly.
that's really it.
Yep, that's right. So in no particular order, even though we're gonna go chronologically, with the meaningless games first, and then we'll get into the games with the implications. Same order. So these will be out of order, but this is the only week we do it. So with all that being said, let's start off with our first meaningless game. The Minnesota Vikings squaring off against the Detroit Lions from Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. This will be over on Fox. Joe Davis, Robert Smith, Christina Pink will be on the call. And the spread favors Minnesota by 4.5. MF, who won the first meeting?
The first meeting was won by the Minnesota Vikings. It was on November 8th, and they defeated Detroit 34-20.
34-20. Okay. So Minnesota, with that first meeting. So just waiting to get my series history notes up and running with the PDF. So all right, come on. Okay. Okay, hold on here. Okay. So Minnesota won. So obviously, if I remember correctly, I think Minnesota has a one-sided lead in this series, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
yep, they do. With that Minnesota win, it is now 77-39 with 2 ties. And with that win, it gave Minnesota a 6th consecutive win against the Lions. Um, they have won the last 3 meetings in Detroit, including 42-30 last year in Detroit. The Lions last beat the Vikings at home in 2016. That was a 16-13 final. So with all that being said, let's get into our first meaningless game of Week 17, and then we'll get into the good stuff after. So here we go. You know the routine: what to watch for, bold predictions, stat to know, draft positioning, or playoff scenarios. We'll let MF handle that. What to know for fantasy, the betting nugget for all you gamblers out there, and of course the FBI and the score. So, all right, what to watch for: trickery. Week 17 is usually full of randomness. The Lions, for instance, have thrown in fake field goals and offensive linemen catching touchdown passes in the last week of the regular season in the past. With everyone knowing a regime change is coming in Detroit, Perhaps we'll see some deep in the playbook plays in the finale. It's at least one thing that can make this game interesting. Bold prediction? How's this for bold? If the Lions play quarterback Matthew Stafford, who is dealing with an ankle injury sustained last week, this will be his final game in Detroit. The Lions' downtrodden organization is looking for a clean slate, so don't be shocked if new hires happen in the front office even before this game kicks off. And a clean slate probably means moving on from the QB the Lions drafted number 1 overall in 2009. Stat to know, Vikings receiver Justin Jefferson has 6 games with 100-plus receiving yards this season, one shy of tying Odell Beckham Jr. in 2014 for the most by a rookie since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970. He also needs 111 yards to break Anquan Boldin's mark for most receiving yards by a Vikings rookie in the Super Bowl era since 1966. This one is all about draft positioning. No playoff implications to see here. The Lions are projected to pick at number 7, and their odds to remain in the top 10 are 86.8% per the FBI. They even have a 27.5% chance to climb into the top 5. The Vikings are looking at the 13th pick per FBI projections with a slim 2.9% chance of maneuvering into the top 10 picks. What's to know for fantasy? Marvin Jones Jr. has been held to fewer than 13.5 fantasy points in 6 of 8 games against the Vikings since joining the Lions. He does have 3 games of over 23 points this season, but that comes with the risk of 7 single-digit performances. The betting nugget, something has to give. The Vikings have failed to cover in 6 straight games, but they have covered each of their past 6 against the Lions. Minnesota, big FPI favorite, 73.6%, just about 74% favoring Minnesota. I agree with that. I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings to win this one. 28-14, Minnesota beats Detroit. So, MF, kick off this meaningless slate.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I'm gonna go also with the Minnesota Vikings. I think the Vikings will get the job done. Detroit is just looking forward to next year. Looking for a new coach, probably a new GM, and starting out fresh. Maybe they might be looking in the draft for maybe a quarterback, maybe to replace Matthew Stafford, because like you said, this could be Stafford's last game as a Detroit Lion. I think he's getting up there in age. He's very injury prone, so I think they're gonna want to go in a younger direction, maybe a quarterback of the future. And the quarterback class in this upcoming draft in 2021 is a stout one. I mean, there's some power with some of the quarterbacks that they got. With Justin Fields from Ohio State, of course, Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence looks like he's going to be heading to Jacksonville with the number 1 overall pick. But you got Trevor Lawrence out there. You got a lot of good quarterbacks that's going to be coming out, and this is going to be one of the deeper quarterback classes in recent years. So, there's going to be some good ones out there. So, I could see Detroit making a move for a quarterback. And as far as Minnesota goes, it's a lot of O-line help that they're going to need next year. More than anything else. They just need and there might be some quarterback questions as well. Kirk Cousins, is he the guy that you're going to want on your team? Who are you going to complement with Dalvin Cook? Who you want to compliment? Maybe there could be some wide receiving help. With Justin Jefferson, who had a really good year this year. How are they going to pair him up with Adam Thielen? And how's that going to look? Defensively is also going to be a key as well, because defensively they were horrible this year, to say the very least. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions for both teams going into next year, more than anything else. So, Anthony, it's yours. I got Minnesota as well.
Agreed. So let's move on to our next game, which ends up being our Zonk game of the week. We have the New York Jets squaring off against the New England Patriots from Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, over on CBS. Tom McCarthy, you don't hear that name often. Tom McCarthy will be working with Jay Feely on this game, and New England opening up as a 3-point favorite. I already know the first meeting, MF, so I won't be needing your assistance on that. At least this one. It was a Monday night game, very very good Monday night game, and New England came away with the win in the Meadowlands. I think it was like 30-27 or something like that. So New England adds to their series lead on the Jets. It's now 66-53 with a tie. And Patriots have now won 9 consecutive meetings with the Jets, and if they win this game tomorrow, this will be the 5th straight year that they have swept the season series with the Jets. The Jets last beat the Patriots in 2015. That was a 26-20 overtime win. The Jets, you want to know the last time the Jets won in Foxborough? It was a playoff game. January of 2011, AFC Divisional Playoff, 28-21. The Jets' last regular season win in Foxborough, 2008, 34-31 in overtime. That was the infamous Brett Favre game, as we all know. So not much more to say here. MF, our Thonk game of the week. I mean, this couldn't be any more perfect for that role. 2-win Jets, 6-win Patriots. I mean, draft positioning, obviously.
Draft positioning more than anything else, and there's a lot of rumors going around that this might be Cam Newton's last game as a New England Patriot. He was signed to a 1-year deal. It doesn't look like the Cam experience did not work in Foxborough. And basically, a lot of rumors, even Cam Newton has said himself that this could be the last game that he might be playing in Foxborough as a New England Patriot. So, we got that. On top of that, we already found out news that Adam Gase will be fired after this game tomorrow against the Patriots. So his era with the New York Jets is done. And now the question is, who's going to be the next head coach? What's going to happen with Sam Darnold? Are they looking for a quarterback? Are they going to be looking for a quarterback of the future to replace him? So there's a lot of questions going on for both teams, everything else. I gotta go with the New England Patriots. The Patriots just seem like, look, for all the bad that they had, it was really self-inflicted gunshot wounds that they suffered. It wasn't really any bad play that they did. It's that they really made their own mistakes, and that's why a lot of the games that they lost were kind of their fault. They could have won those games. They were close games. They were right down to the wire where they could have taken some of these games, and maybe we could be talking about the Patriots having a better year than they did. But a lot of some games that they had opportunities, they just didn't play well. Defensively, they looked like a mess. Offensively, they didn't look good. This was definitely an odd year for the New England Patriots. It was a very odd year because of the fact that, there was so much expectations, but then again, there was a lot of uncertainty as well because you didn't know what this team was going to look like. First, you had a whole bunch of players drop out because of the COVID-19. They opted out, and some of them were some of their best players. So obviously, you have that rollover. Then you had the hangover of the Brady breakup. Tom Brady leaving New England to go to Tampa Bay. You had that to hanging over your head. So there was a lot of stuff that was happening in Foxborough that for any other team, what we saw was basically what I guess we could say we could have expected. When you got all that breakup, all that devastation, all that heartache, you knew it was only a matter of time before that levee broke, and it did. This year was a down year for New England. Now everybody's like, "Oh, the dynasty's over. The dynasty's over." Well, here's the thing. You're going to get a lot of those defensive players back next year. If they get themselves a good quarterback, the Patriots will be relevant again next year. As far as the Jets go, this is a project and a half for them. They got a lot of work that they need to do. Defensively, offensively, coaching staff. The Jets is going to go into a hard reset, and they're going to have to rebuild from the ground up to start this all over again for them. I'm sorry, the Jets are not going to be relevant for a long time. As far as the Patriots goes, Anthony, this could have been a mirage. This could have been like a 1 year where they could be just bad, or this could be a trend of subpar to near down years for the Patriots. We don't know what we're going to get, but if they get themselves a prime quarterback, like a real powerful quarterback, and they get that defense back fully healthy where there's no COVID issues, we could see the Patriots be a threat again next year. At least not for the AFC, but the AFC East could get really interesting next year. We could have a legit three-horse race next year with Miami on the rise, Buffalo on the rise, and New England. Yes, they're wounded, but we're talking about the New England Patriots, one of the most dominating teams in the last 20 years. Yes, this was a slip off, but trust me, I would not want to say it's over. Not by a long shot. So, nothing more to say. Patriots win. Florio, it's yours.
I counted the meaningless games. There's good news. There's only 4, and we've already gotten through 2 of them. So we got 2 more to go. The other 12 games, in one way or another, have some sort of playoff implication. Some not really, not all that huge, but others humongous. But all right, 2 in the early window, 2 in the late window. So we're going to move to the late window of the meaningless games, and we're going to talk about this game that will be also on CBS. 4:25 kickoff. The Las Vegas Raiders squaring off against the Denver Broncos from Sports Authority Field at Mile High in Denver, Colorado. Speaking of names you never hear on the CBS side often, here's another one. Beth Mowins. Beth Mowins will be working the game with Tiki Barber. They're going to be calling that game in Denver, and the spread favors the Raiders by 2.5. If I recall, didn't the Raiders win the first one?
Yes, they did.
I thought
Yes,
so.
they won that game by a final score
In Vegas.
of in Vegas. Yep, and they won that game by the final score of 37-12, and that was on
37 to
November
12.
15th.
November 15th. Yep, I remember. So there you go. So the Raiders won the first meeting with the Broncos. So the Raiders add to their series lead. It's now 65-53 with 2 ties. And hang on, did I read that right? Let me just make sure I had the right. Yeah, that is correct. 65-53 with 2 ties in favor of the Raiders. And the last. And if the Raiders were to win that game tomorrow, this would be the first time that the Raiders have swept the Broncos since 2010. That's the last time the Raiders swept the Broncos. Other years they've split. Other years the Broncos have swept. But Broncos won the Broncos have won the last few meetings in Denver. Raiders have not won in Denver since 2015. That was a 15-12 final. So math, the Broncos were already out of it, but the Raiders, oh boy, last Saturday night, what your Dolphins did to them, the most demoralizing loss in their franchise history.
Yeah, that was, man, what a game though. Oh my God, what a game.
5 stars.
5-star classic Shakespearean
Shakespearean.
drama.
Oh yeah.
Trust me, Florio, I was on the edge of my seat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was not in a good mood. I was all over the place. My
Yeah,
emotions were going.
very questionable officiating, but at least your guys won. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters. I'm gonna say it like this: even though the Raiders did lose, they definitely have a leg up on the future. But you're going up against Denver in the Mile High City. That's never an easy place to play. I
Oh
know
no.
because Miami lost in Denver earlier in the year, and that
Buffalo
almost hurt
didn't.
us. Buffalo didn't, but
No. We had our way with them, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but we went out of turn here. It should have
yeah,
been me.
I know.
But
So go ahead, it's yours.
yeah, yeah. You can't blame me. This is very exciting stuff. Let me tell you. Even though I'm just so excited about the big games coming up. But let's get into this first. Oh my goodness, I didn't even give you my. Boy, I'm all over the place tonight. But it's exciting though. It's exciting. It's week 17. Come on. Postseason's right around the corner, especially the wild card round. Oh my gosh. But for the Jets and the Patriots, though, what to watch for? Does the telephone on the Patriots sideline work? We all saw what Bill Belichick did to that on Monday night. Oh, communications could be stressed in a finale that has no meaning other than draft position. Bold prediction: Jets quarterback Sam Darnold, who has not faced the Patriots since the infamous ghost game last year, will get his first career win over the Patriots in what could be his final game with the Jets. The Jets have been outscored 71-3 in Darnold's 2 starts against the Patriots with 4 picks. Stat to know: the Patriots have 8 passing touchdowns and 14 interceptions this season. They have finished with fewer than 10 passing touchdowns in a season just once, 1970, when they accumulated 7 touchdowns and 28 interceptions. Can you believe that? Draft picture: obviously, the Jets have secured the number 2 pick in the draft, but the Patriots can still slide up or down the draft board. They are currently projected to hold the 15th pick with a 0.7% chance to move into the top 10. For fantasy, Jets receiver Jamison Crowder came through last week, 29.3 fantasy points, and saved you with a score in the first meeting with New England. But be aware that he was targeted on just 10.5% of his routes in that game, his second lowest rate of the season. Betting nugget: the Patriots have won each of the past 9 meetings, but they are just 5-4 against the spread in those games. New England is the FPI favorite, 73.1%. I agree with you, MF. I'm going with New England to win as well, 20-17. That's my final there. Now, as far as the Raiders and the Broncos are concerned, what to watch for in that? It is Denver quarterback Drew Lock's final chance in 2020 to show whether he can be the 2021 starter. He has gotten some votes of confidence along the way, and the Broncos do figure to amp up the competition in the quarterback room a bit this offseason. But this is his closing argument in a decidedly up and down year. He goes into this one tied for the league lead in interceptions and ranking last in completion percentage. Bold prediction: after leaving so many points on the field last week, settling for field goals from 23, 38, 20, and 22 yards, the Raiders will unleash a Marcus Mariota package deep in the red zone to try to score TDs rather than field goals. Starting quarterback Derek Carr with a strained groin was nowhere near mobile last week, but Mariota is healthy and not against extending plays or running the ball in. Stat to know: the Raiders are 5-14 in December/January regular season games since 2017, the worst record in such games in the NFL over that span. Draft positioning: with the Raiders officially out of it, this is another game whose implications are limited to draft position concerns. Denver is projected to have the 9th draft pick per FPI, and it has a 54.7% chance to stay in the top 10. It even has an ever so slight chance at the top 5, 0.3% per FPI. The Raiders are currently looking at the number 17 pick, and they cannot enter the top 10 at this point. For fantasy, over the past 2 weeks, the Broncos' Noah Fant ranks inside the top 5 tight ends in targets 21, receptions 14, and fantasy points 33.3. Betting nugget: the Raiders have covered 5 straight meetings, and each of the past 7 meetings went under the total. Vegas FPI favorite, slight one, 53.4%. I have to go with the Raiders in this one. I'm going to go 27-26. Vegas ekes one out in Denver. So not much more to say. All right, MF, now you're up.
Like you said, demoralizing loss for the Raiders last week that knocked them out of the playoff contention. But I do know that they want to go out with a bang on this one. So I do believe that the Raiders should win the game. So, Florio, the final, I guess you could say, non-competitive playoff implication game of the week.
Yeah. And I didn't know about this until the 11th hour. I thought this game was going to be on CBS, but apparently it got cross-flexed over to Fox. And in turn, Fox cross-flexed one of their games to us. And we ended up getting one of their big ones. But we'll get into that in a moment. But the other 425 game that is meaningless, also from the AFC West, but this will be over on Fox now. The Los Angeles Chargers against your reigning, defending, undisputed Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. And this one, like I said, is going to be over on Fox. Kevin Kugler with Brock Heward and Laura Oakman. They will be on the call for that one. And the spread favors the Chargers. The Chargers are the favorite. 3.5 is the spread on that. And I already know who won. They met in a very exciting game in week number 2, which was the Chargers' debut at SoFi. But Kansas City came back and won that game. So So Kansas City now adds to their series lead. It's now 64-55 with a tie. Chiefs have won the last 3 meetings in a row with the Chargers. Um, Kansas City won the earlier games. They swept both meetings last year. The Chargers were the home team, and they played in Mexico City. Chargers were the home team, but the Chiefs won 24-17. But the Chiefs, they won at home last year. We all remember that game last year, coupled with that infamous Dolphin Patriot game. Changed the whole complexion of the AFC playoff picture a year ago, and we all know how that ended. The last time the Chargers won in Kansas City, one of the great regular season games in recent memory, MF and I will never forget it, on that Thursday night when the Chargers stole one in Arrowhead, 29-28. Now, MF, you do lead off on this one. The Chargers, obviously out of it, but of course Kansas City, they've got everything locked up. Number 1 seed, home field throughout the division, and it's already been confirmed. No Patrick Mahomes. Your old friend from Michigan, Chad Henne, is going to be the starter. What do you think about that?
Yes, absolutely. Just hold on one second, Anthony. Why don't you just lead for a minute? I got something going on. Give me a minute.
Oh yeah. No issue here. Yeah. Chargers, or I should say the Chiefs. I'll wait until MF is ready to get back in with us. I'm not going to do my formal thing yet, but I definitely can set the table here. I mean, I naturally assumed that this game was going to be on CBS, but it's not. It's going to be on Fox, and as part of the cross-flexing. Kansas City setting a new franchise record with wins. 14. This is the most they've ever won in a single season. Their previous mark was 13. They've done that on a number of occasions. And they have the number 1 seed and home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs. So the road to the Super Bowl will go through Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City as long as they're still playing. And it was already confirmed. Andy Reid already confirmed this week that Chad Henne, MF's old friend from Michigan, is going to be starting in place of Patrick Mahomes. And MF, you have a feeling that Kansas City is very likely going to rest all their starters, even though their next game won't be for 2 weeks.
And actually, from what I heard, not only is he out, Tyreek Hill is now out. And I also heard Travis Kelce will not play as well. There is also rumors that Clyde Edwards-Helaire might not suit up either. So, yeah, this is the situation where, basically, like you said, all the necessary players, all the superstar players will not play this game. So you're going to see a lot of second guys, third tier guys, basically guys from the practice squad. They're going to get the opportunities if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. If you're the Chargers, you just want to get a win just to get some momentum going into next year. You got yourself the quarterback of the future with Justin Herbert. So this is one of those situations where if Kansas City loses, it doesn't hurt them. They're not going to lose any sleep over the loss. Like you said, they wrapped everything up last week when they got the number 1 seed. So they could play this one out. Hope and pray that there's no major injuries with their second or third tier guys, so that they don't lose any depth heading into the playoffs. That's the one thing you probably would be afraid of. But if you're Kansas City, you're just sitting back and you're just going to enjoy it. Obviously, you're going to want to try to play to win. But I feel like this is the Chargers' game to win with no Patrick Mahomes, none of the big names. This is the perfect opportunity for the Chargers, and I think they will get it done. The Chargers breaks the streak. They win in Arrowhead tomorrow. Anthony, it's yours.
Definitely. What to watch for? The Chiefs will try to keep as many of their regulars out of harm's way after clinching the AFC's number 1 playoff seed last week. So Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert is in line for a big day. He got his NFL career started in week 2 against these Chiefs by throwing for 311 yards and a touchdown in a tough luck overtime loss. Bold prediction, Herbert will finish strong with a 400-plus yard game. With the Chiefs likely sitting some defensive starters, he will break the rookie passing yard record. His 4,034 yards are currently fourth on the list, and he needs 341 to pass Andrew Luck for the most. Stat to know, Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce has 1,416 receiving yards this season, most ever by a tight end. He needs 44 more than Stephon Diggs of Buffalo this week to move into first overall this season, if he plays. No tight end has ever led the NFL in receiving yards in a season. The playoff/draft situation, the Chiefs have locked up both the AFC West and the number one seed in the AFC. They will receive both home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs and that all-important lone wild card round bye. The Chargers, meanwhile, are 33.5% likely to lock up a top 10 draft pick for April. FPI currently has them picking at number 10. For fantasy, Chargers running back Austin Eckler has scored over 7 fantasy points as a pass catcher in 4 of his 5 games since returning to action in Week 12. Betting Nuggets, since 1990, teams that have previously clinched home field advantage throughout the playoffs are 9-23 against the spread in Week 17 games. And despite all this, Kansas City is still the FPI favorite, and a decent one at that, 65.5%. But, MF, I do agree with you. I got to go with the LA Chargers to win this game as well. I'm going to go 26-20. The Chargers beat Kansas City. So that's it for that. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. Let's do this thing. Every game from here on out, in one form or another, will have the playoff implications. And I can't think of a better way to start it off than with the early slate of action, the game that MF and I are going to do, the Tony and Mikey special for this week. And oh boy, is it a biggie. Buddy Bowl, the Miami Dolphins squaring off against the Buffalo Bills from Bills Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. This will be over on CBS. Kevin Harlan, Trent Green, AJ Ross, they will be in Buffalo for this one. And the spread favors Buffalo. Buffalo opening up as a 2.5-point favorite. They also met in week number 2. And it was the Buffalo Bills who came away with the win in a very, very exciting game there. It was a high-scoring affair. But Buffalo got the win in Miami, so they cut into the Dolphins' all-time series lead. Miami still leads the all-time series, MF, and still has a decent lead in that. Miami now leads at 60-48 with a tie. However, the Bills have won the last 4 meetings in a row with the Dolphins, including the last 3 in Buffalo. The Dolphins have not won in Buffalo since a wild 34-31 overtime win in 2016. That's the last time Miami won in Buffalo. So here we go. Nothing more to say. Let's get into this. So all right, what to watch for? Now locked into either the number 2 or number 3 seed in the AFC, the Bills have a tough decision to make. Do they rest their starters and risk playoff positioning by losing to Miami, allowing a division rival entry into the postseason in the process? Or do they risk injury, play their starters, and try to secure home field advantage through at least the first 2 rounds? Whether or not the Bills' stars play will have a big impact on the outcome. Bold prediction, Dolphins cornerback Xavier Howard will get his 10th interception of the year, making him the first defender in 13 years to get double-digit picks, Antonio Cromartie in 2007. Howard getting a pick shouldn't be a surprise, but his overall frequency will be. Buffalo quarterback Josh Allen has made a routine of torching the Dolphins, 17 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. But Miami's defense is due a big game against the Bills, though it's unclear if Allen or Matt Barkley will take most of the reps for a team that has already clinched the division. Stat to know, Miami leads the NFL in scoring defense, 18.8 points allowed per game, after ranking last in 2019 with just about 31. Per the Elias Sports Bureau data, the only team in NFL history to go from worst to first in scoring defense is the 1966-67 Houston Oilers in the old AFL, who jumped from 28.3 points allowed to 14.2. We'll save the scenarios for MF because I know how much he loves that. For fantasy, Buffalo receiver Stephon Diggs has 96.3 fantasy points over the last 3 weeks, pacing the position by 17.4 points. If he can rack up 130 receiving yards for a fourth straight game, he will become just the fourth player with such a streak over the last decade. Odell Beckham Jr. and Calvin Johnson. Betting nugget, Miami is 15-5 against the spread in its past 20 games as an underdog, including 4 straight covers. And it is 15-9 against the spread as an underdog under their head coach, Brian Flores. Buffalo is the FPI favorite, 69.7%, just about 70% going with the Buffalo Bills. This is tough to call. I mean, I don't know what my team's going to do. I personally want to see them win this game so they can get the number 2 seed. And that would give them home field through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. And it was also announced that when they host their playoff game next week, whether it's next Saturday or Sunday, they're going to have fans. There will be fans in attendance, as they were granted permission by the governor of New York and New York State. So I'm very grateful for that. And I know those fans are going to be clamoring to get in there, and why not? I mean, it's been a long time since this has happened, so this is tough to call. I mean, for the sake of head-to-head and all that, I will go with my Buffalo Bills to win, but I'm not overly confident. I mean, even though there was other news coming out that Ryan Fitzpatrick tested positive for COVID-19, so that obviously puts all the pressure on Tua.
Yep.
So that's all there is to say on that. So I'm going to go with my Buffalo Bills. I'm not overly convinced. I'm hopeful that the starters will play a good amount of the game, and hopefully they'll do just enough to get – because I want that number 2 seed. I really do. So even if they have to risk injury and all that. So I'll go 23-20. I think my Bills will get it done, but if they don't, I'm not at all surprised. But we can't be any worse than 3, so I'm fine with that. So but I really want the 2. So there isn't much more to say. Good old MF Michael Fletcher. This is our game right here, because the implications for both teams are huge. And I know you'll get into that in a moment, but you are the Jim Nance. I mean, the Phil Simms to my Jim Nance here. This is our game here. And Fitzpatrick out, COVID, Tua, it's all on you, baby. So not much more to say except hello, friends, and do that thing I like.
Yeah, no, this is the game that really has a lot of implications, and like you said, this could go a number of ways. I mean, it's honestly going to be very. We just don't know how this is going to play out. Like you said, going into this, you were absolutely right. This could have gone a number of factors. It's either they win. It's either they would have won it one way, or they got to win it another way. Whatever the case may be, this is going to be a great matchup. Buffalo and Miami is always great games. But Anthony, you also left something hanging here that you should have talked about. In 2016, that game that Miami did win, that was a Week 17 game. That was a win or get in for Miami. So we've been here before. We know what to do. And we had to deal with bad weather, cold, and we had to deal with Buffalo with their fans at the time to play in that game where it was. If Miami won, they got in. If they lost, they probably were dead in the water. Yep. So the Dolphins won that game. Now, do I think that Buffalo's going to have all their starters? I don't think so. I truly believe Allen will play a little bit. I think Diggs will play a little bit. I don't think they're playing the full game. I could see them maybe play a quarter or something like that.
Oh,
I think.
I'm sorry to interrupt them, but I just found something very interesting here. This is a 1:00 game, correct?
Yes.
I'm checking the hourly forecast for Orchard Park, New York.
Oh, I heard about the snow.
No.
Yes. I heard about the snow. Yep.
Between 35 and 30, it's going to be 36 degrees at game time and around 35 at the end. And the snow should start to taper off around 5 o'clock. So we might have snow for the whole game here.
Yep, we'll have snow. Well, no, because if it snows, remember, Miami's got a good running game. We got Myles Gaskin. We do have Matt Breida. We have Ahmed. So, I mean, Miami will be fine. And you saw what happened with Miles Gaskins what he did last week, and with Tua, and you don't need to play deep downfield. You could play the small ball now, and that might help. But it all depends on what Buffalo does. This is the thing. If Buffalo has all their starters and they play the whole game, Buffalo walks away with a big win. They'll beat the Miami Dolphins, no doubt. But if they decide, you know what, we're just going to sit back, we're not going to worry about this because we don't want to risk any injuries. And I think this also might come into play that they don't want none of their starters to get hurt, especially now that they know that it's going to snow tomorrow. Because that could, snow is very slippery. The snow is very slick. And one false move, and you could lose Allen, you could lose Diggs, you could lose one of your big boys, and you do not want that to happen, Anthony. So I think Buffalo will play this very conservative. I know Ryan Flores will not. And I think the Miami Dolphins will beat the Buffalo Bills tomorrow. That will give Miami the ticket into the playoffs. Now, Miami, all they would need is just to win. There would be no other factors that they would need. However, if Miami should lose, and if they needed the extra help, all they would need is either a Raven loss, a Brown loss, or an Indianapolis Colt loss, and Miami gets in. However, in case that there's a tie, then either if Miami ties, they would need either the Ravens to tie, the Browns to tie, the Colts to tie, or the Tennessee Titans to have an outright loss. So there's 8 scenarios for the Miami Dolphins to get into the playoffs.
Anything for Buffalo?
For Buffalo, basically what happens is, for Buffalo, it's this. If you win, you clinch the 2. If you lose, then you need Pittsburgh to lose, and you still get the 2. There's a possibility where Buffalo could fall all the way down to number 4. But that's a horrible situation. But you would have to lose, Pittsburgh would have to win, and either Tennessee or Indianapolis would have to win their game tomorrow, and Buffalo could fall all the way down to 4. So basically, if Buffalo wins, they get the 2. If they lose, then they would need Pittsburgh to lose, and they would still get the number 2 overall seed. So basically, for Buffalo, you could still get the 2 without winning the game. You would need Pittsburgh to lose as well.
Okay, so obviously this is going to be one of our vintage and legendary head-to-heads. Am I correct?
Traditional, yep.
Going with Miami.
Yep.
Yep, and I'm going Buffalo. So even though, like I said, I'm not overly confident, but we'll see. So next up on our implication list, it's also from our side of the ledger, 1 o'clock kickoff. The Baltimore Ravens squaring off against the Cincinnati Bengals from Paul Brown Stadium in Cincinnati. Spiro Ditas, Adam Archuleta, they'll be on the call for CBS. Baltimore, the lock of the week as far as the spread is concerned. They're a 13-point favorite to beat Cincinnati, and rightfully so. First meeting, I believe Baltimore won. Am I right on that, MF?
That's right. That was the. I want to say that was the opening week of the season. Let me see.
They played Cleveland. No, they played Cleveland the first week.
Oh no, okay. It was October 11th, and it was 27-3, Baltimore.
Yep, and that was in Baltimore. So,
yep.
So Baltimore adds to their slight lead. It's not an overwhelming lead against Cincinnati. It's a slight lead, but they upped it. It's now 26-23 in favor of Baltimore. Ravens have now won 4 in a row against the Bengals. Ravens, they went into Cincinnati and made themselves at home. 49-13 beatdown in Cincy last year. However, the Bengals beat the Ravens at home the year before, 34-23. So that's really all there is to say on that. So MF, we know the implications here. There's no implications for Cincy. They're playing for draft stock, but for the Ravens, what happens if they win? What happens if they lose? What?
Well, for Baltimore, it's pretty simple. If you win, you're in. If for some reason that falls apart, then you would either need Cleveland to lose, and Cleveland plays Pittsburgh. That's a tough game. That could go either way. Or you would need Indianapolis to lose. That most likely won't happen because they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. But you never know. But there is some tie scenarios that if they should tie, if Baltimore ties against if Baltimore ties against Cincinnati, then they can get in by either Miami losing to Buffalo, which that could go either way, a Tennessee loss, which maybe not because they're playing Houston, or if Cleveland ties with Pittsburgh, which, that's possible, or an Indy tie with Jacksonville, not so much. So 7 scenarios for Baltimore, but they're not going to need 6 of those scenarios. They're getting the outright win. Lamar Jackson will have a big game. They will go in. Baltimore clinches a playoff spot tomorrow by winning outright. Nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours.
Definitely, I 100% agree with that. Let me get my notes on this matchup. All right, what to watch for? With Baltimore needing a win to clinch a playoff spot, Cincinnati is looking to play spoiler and end the season on a 3-game winning streak for the first time since 2015. But the Ravens' number 1 rushing attack is a big reason the visitors will be the heavy favorites against Cincinnati. Bold prediction: Lamar Jackson will become the first quarterback in NFL history to rush for over 1,000 yards in 2 seasons. Jackson needs 92 yards on Sunday to do so. He averaged 112 yards rushing in his first 3 meetings with the Bengals before rushing only twice for a career-low 3 yards against them in Week 5. Stats to know: Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins is 92 receiving yards shy of joining A.J. Green in 2011 and Chris Collinsworth, if you can believe that, in 1981 as the only Bengals rookies with 1,000 receiving yards. Playoff draft picture: MF already set the table. The Ravens can clinch a playoff berth with a win, or a Browns loss to Pittsburgh, or a Colts loss to Jacksonville. FPI likes those odds, giving them a 90.6% chance to make the postseason. The Bengals, however, are more concerned with draft position. They are projected to have the number 5 pick, and the FPI has them at 73.3% chance of staying in the top 5 come Sunday night. What to know for fantasy? Lamar Jackson is averaging 40.4% more fantasy points per game over the past 3 weeks than he did prior to Week 14 this season. Betting nugget: the Ravens have covered 5 straight and are 41-0 outright as a double-digit favorite in the regular season. They are the only franchise that is undefeated in such games. 74.1% is the FPI projection. Big odds for Baltimore. Lock of the week right here. Baltimore Ravens win this thing going away 31-10. Baltimore all over Cincinnati. So they'll be in. We'll see them back in the postseason once again. So with that being said, moving on. Our next implication game, and it's the number 2 game on our side of the ledger. The Pittsburgh Steelers squaring off against the Cleveland Browns from Cleveland Browns Stadium in Cleveland, Ohio. Iron Eagle, Charles Davis, and Evan Washburn, they will be on the call for that one. And the spread favors, Cleveland. Cleveland is opening up as a 9.5-point favorite.
Yep.
But I think we all know the reasoning behind that. We'll get to that in a minute. But nonetheless, I do remember these 2 teams met in Pittsburgh earlier this year. It was while MF and I were away doing the baseball commitments. Derek and Bullock had this game in our place, and it wasn't even close. Pittsburgh routed Cleveland. I think it was like 38-7 or something like that in Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh adds to their one-sided series lead, 75-59 with a tie. But here's the thing: Cleveland beat Pittsburgh in Cleveland last year, 21-7. That infamous Thursday night game. We all remember the brouhaha that went down after the game.
Uh,
Yeah, we all remember that. Um, 2018, they played to a tie. So Pittsburgh last outright win in Cleveland was in 2017. That was a 21-18 final. So here we go. Pittsburgh and Cleveland, our number 2 game of the week, and here you go. As soon as I can find it here. All right. What to watch for? How will Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph respond in going back to the scene of the helmet swing, where defensive end Myles Garrett and the Browns will be waiting in a must-win for Cleveland? The Browns, however, might still be navigating COVID-19 issues within their roster. Bold prediction, Rudolph might start the game, but Joshua Dobbs will be the one to finish it. The Steelers are resting Ben Roethlisberger, giving their backups a chance for game action. The Steelers know what they have in Rudolph after last season, and he'll get at least a half to show them his improvement. But they should also give Dobbs some reps to see what they have in their number 3. Stat to know, the Steelers rank last in offensive efficiency over the past 4 weeks at 19.5, on a scale of 0 to 100. They have gone without a first down on a league-high 37.4% of their drives this season. There is a small number I need to address when it comes to I only have numbers here. I'm not going to give the scenarios. I know MF loves that, so I'm not going to steal that from him. But I am going to share some numbers here. The Browns have a 57.6% chance to make the playoffs. The Steelers, they've already locked up the AFC North, and they are eliminated from the chance for the number 1. The Steelers' chances to be the number 2 seed in the AFC currently sit at 16.4%. And I'll stop there. What to know for fantasy? Pittsburgh receiver Deontay Johnson has been a top 15 receiver in 5 of his past 7 games, but can he keep it up with Rudolph under center? The next time Rudolph throws for 255 yards or 3 touchdowns in a game will be the first. So be careful in trusting any and all Steelers this weekend. Betting nugget, Cleveland is 2-9 against the spread this season in conference games and 0-5 against the spread in division games. Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield is 11-21-1 against the spread in his career in conference games, including 6-10 against the spread in division games. Pittsburgh is still the FPI favorite, but not much. It's only 55.4% for Pittsburgh. But considering there's no Ben, and considering I think they should have their big receivers and playmakers back from the COVID issues that cost them the game against the Jets last week, I think that the Cleveland Browns will find a way and win this game. I will say the final score is going to be 20-17. Cleveland will beat Pittsburgh, and get Drew Carey down there and sing Cleveland Rocks to your heart's content, because you'll be postseason bound for the first time since 2002. And should that happen, they would snap the current longest playoff drought in the NFL as of now. So I'm going with Cleveland, 20-17. MF, our number 2 game of the week. What has to happen for both sides?
Well, basically for Pittsburgh, it's simple. If they win and Buffalo loses, Pittsburgh would actually get the number 2 overall seed. They would leapfrog over Buffalo and get the 2. If for some reason Buffalo does win, then Pittsburgh would be locked into 3, and there would be nothing more that they can do at that point. There's an outside shot at 4, but that's if Pittsburgh loses, and I believe they would need Tennessee to win. Tennessee would have to win. I don't believe Indy could get the 3 at that point. But for Cleveland can get in under these scenarios. Cleveland gets in on a win, an Indy loss, just an Indy loss gets Cleveland in. Here's a weird one, guys. Tennessee would have to lose. Miami would have to either win or tie, and Baltimore would have to win or tie. If that happens, Cleveland is in. Cleveland can also get in on tie scenarios, but they would need Baltimore to lose, Miami to lose, Tennessee to lose individually. Cleveland can also get in on a Cleveland tie and an Indy tie, or now this last one's crazy. If Cleveland ties and Tennessee ties, then they would need Baltimore to win and Miami to win. and Cleveland would get in by virtue of tiebreakers. And I think the lone tiebreaker would be over the Titans. That would get them over, and that would get them in the playoffs. So there's 8 scenarios for Cleveland, but they definitely would need the help. They definitely need help. So to all basically, if Cleveland wins, they're in. I think they will. If it was any other team, I would say all right. But I believe Cleveland will get the job done. They're going to the playoffs. Anthony, nothing more to say. It's yours.
First time since 2002. Can you believe that?
Man, senior year for us.
Well, actually, it was
Well,
after
2000, 2001, going into 2002, yeah, that would have been like my first year in college. That they would have been in the playoffs.
it was 2002 going into 2003.
Yeah, first year in college.
Yep. So that was the last time. So all right, we already covered Minnesota and Detroit. We already covered Jets and New England. All right. So the next 1:00 game that has implications. Oh boy, we got a biggie in the NFC. Huge one here. It's been a long time since a game between these two teams had any real meaning, but here we go. The Dallas Cowboys squaring off against the New York Giants from MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey in the Meadowlands. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Aaron Andrews, they will be there. And the spread favors the Dallas Cowboys by 1.5. They met earlier this year in Dallas, and I believe Dallas won that game. Am I right?
I believe they did. Let me check.
Or did the Giants actually steal it?
It was no Dallas 37-34 on October 11th. So no, Dallas stole it.
Won. All right, so Dallas got the win. Of course, we all remember that was also the game where Dak Prescott suffered that horrific injury.
Yep, that was a horrific injury. Yeah,
and that changed the complexion of the Cowboys season. But we'll get to Derek Ferreira in a minute because I know he's going to be watching this with a very vested interest. With the Dallas win, Dallas now adds to their one-sided series lead. It's now 69-45 with 2 ties in favor of Dallas. Dallas has now won 7 meetings in a row against the Giants, and if they win tomorrow, they would sweep the Giants for the 4th consecutive year. The Giants have not beaten the Cowboys at home since 2016. That was a 10-7 final, but since then it's been all Dallas in New York. So there's so I believe I start this one off.
Yes, you do.
Okay, so Dallas and the Giants. Oh boy, big one here. What to watch for? The Cowboys have dominated this rivalry, winning 7 in a row. The last time the Giants beat the Cowboys was more than 4 years ago, late in the 2016 season, when Odell Beckham Jr.'s 61-yard touchdown proved to be the difference. The Giants are hoping the streak finally ends now, along with their playoff drought. They haven't made the playoffs since that same 2016 season. Bold prediction, the Giants will rush for fewer than 100 yards against the Cowboys. Dallas has allowed 2,416 yards on the ground this season, the second most in team history. Even during their 3-game winning streak, the Cowboys are allowing 134 yards a game on the ground. They have gone just 2 games this season, not giving up 100 yards on the ground. The first came against New York, 89 yards on 27 carries. Since rushing for 190 yards in their last win against Seattle in Week 13, the Giants have not topped 78 yards in a game on the ground. Stat to know, turnovers and takeaways have been crucial to the Cowboys' turnaround. In their first 12 games, they carried a -13 turnover margin and a -92 points off turnover margin. In their past 3 games, they have a +9 turnover margin, a +48 points off turnover margin with 0 points allowed off of them. Now, as far as I'm not going to get into the scenarios because that's MF's doing, but I am going to share some numbers. If the New York Giants win the NFC East, listen to this number, MF. If the Giants win the division, there would be 375 win percentage, would be the all-time worst win percentage for a playoff team. The Cowboys have a 16.5% chance to do so, while the Giants are at 24% per FPI. Win or lose, both teams might be looking at draft order if, of course, the other team wins, but I'm not going to give that away. FPI has the Giants with the 11th pick, a 52.5% chance to pick in the top 10, and 10.1% chance for the top 5, while the Cowboys are one spot back at number 12, 52.4% chance for the top 10. For fantasy, Cowboys receiver Michael Gallup is coming off his best game of the season, 30.1 points against the Philadelphia Eagles, but can he do it twice in a row? He failed to score even 5 fantasy points in the game following his other two 20-point performances this season. Betting nugget, in the past 30 seasons, New York is 7-1 outright and 6-2 against the spread when still alive in the playoff race entering Week 17. Dallas is 2-6 outright and 3-5 against the spread in those games. The Giants are the FBI favorite, 59.5%, just about 60% going with the Giants. But I'm sorry, I can't do that. I got to go with the Dallas Cowboys to win this game. 27-17, I'm going with Dallas to win. And there's not much more to say, MF. I mean, this is literally, for these two, a winner-take-all if the Sunday night game goes their way. So
Exactly.
what has to happen? What has to happen for Derek Ferreira to actually be smiling about this team?
Well, here's the thing. Anthony, you just alluded to it. This is consequently an eliminator game. So basically, the loser of this game is dead to rights. They're out. They will not make the playoffs. They're out. The division title is lost. Basically, all it would literally hinge on would be with the second game. Philly versus Washington on Sunday night will literally become a big game because the winner of this game would need Washington to lose. If Washington loses, the winner of the Giants-Dallas wins the NFC East. So basically, whoever wins this game is going to have to watch and hope and pray that Philadelphia knocks off Washington because if that happens, they're going to be the NFC Eastern Division champions. Dallas wins in my mind. I'll tell you what happens with the division a little bit later on once we get into the Sunday night game. So, Florio, next game.
All right. So, let's see. I believe we have one o'clock game left, and very minuscule playoff implications in this one, but there are some very small implications for this one. The Atlanta Falcons squaring off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida, on Fox. Chris Myers with Greg Jennings and Jennifer Hale, they will be there. I already know how this one plays out. They just met a couple weeks ago in Atlanta in a wild and crazy game in Atlanta. Tampa Bay won that game. So, and Tampa Bay is opening up as a 7-point favorite. So, very, very encouraging for those guys. So, with the Buck win, it cuts into Atlanta's series lead. Atlanta's lead now drops to 28-26 in favor of Atlanta when it comes to their series history with Tampa Bay. The Bucks, they won in Atlanta, obviously, but the Falcons have actually won the last 4 meetings in Tampa, including a 28-22 overtime win there last year. The Buccaneers have not beaten the Falcons at home since 2015. That was a 23-19 win. So, so there isn't really much to say on that. But before I give it to MF, I just want to address one quick round of breaking news. The Texas A&M Aggies have won the Orange Bowl. Texas A&M has defeated North Carolina 41-27. The Texas A&M Aggies are gonna get to feast on the most beautiful trophy in all of sports, and I cannot wait to see it. We're minutes away from it, so forgive me if I'm a little lackadaisical. So, because you know how much I love that trophy.
Yeah, we know how much you love the trophy. It's coming.
Oh, yeah.
If it hasn't been on the field yet, it will be out in a matter of
about,
moments.
No, it's about to be. I'm watching it right now. So,
Yep.
So A&M won it 41-27. That's the final there. They beat Carolina, so A&M gets the Orange Bowl. So, all right. So MF, obviously no implications for Atlanta, but Tampa Bay though playing for
It's more for seeding. It's more for seeding. However, they can't get nothing. Basically, they did clinch a playoff spot, If they lose, now they run the risk of falling, where they could fall to a six seed, because that also depends on what the Rams does. But right now, they're basically staying put at 5. I don't see them going anywhere higher than anything else. So this is one of those situations where, Anthony, you could say this could have been done earlier in the night, because I kind of felt like this is a little bit meaningless, but I understand it. There is a little bit of, this is more seeding implications more than anything else. If Tampa wins, then they get the 5, then they will clinch the number 5 seed. They would be playing they would actually be playing the winner of the NFC East, whoever that may be, in the wild card round. If they lose that game, now you possibly run the risk of falling to 6, and then now you got problems, because then you might run into New Orleans, you might run into Seattle. There's even an outside chance you could run into Green Bay. Now that gets dangerous if you're Tampa. So we'll see. Hopefully, I think Tampa should win. That'll clinch them to 5. Then they just got to worry about whoever the NFC Eastern Division champion is, because they get to play them first. And honestly, I would make Tampa the favorite in the wild card round if that happens. So nothing more to say, Anthony. It's yours.
Yeah. I was a little unsure about where to place this game. I mean, because it's the way it was worded in my notes. So that's why I, went included this in our implication list. So, but here we go. What to watch for? The Falcons had a 17-0 lead on the Bucs at halftime 2 weeks ago, and became the only team this season to hold the Kansas City Chiefs to fewer than 20 points last week. But they haven't been able to close out games. The Buccaneers, meanwhile, are hoping they can put 4 quarters together as a final tune-up heading into their first postseason since 2007. And make no mistake about it, they want to go streaking into the playoffs. This would be their 4th straight win if they can get it. Bold prediction, Bucs receiver Mike Evans had 110 yards receiving against Atlanta 2 weeks ago and 181 last week against Detroit. But the Falcons will hold him to 55 yards on Sunday. However, quarterback Tom Brady will surpass 300 yards passing for a 3rd straight game, marking the first time he will have done so since weeks 2 to 4 of 2017 in New England. Stat to know, Brady already has a team record 36 passing touchdowns this season, and he could become the first player with 40 passing touchdowns in a season at age 40 or older. His Atlanta counterpart, Matt Ryan, has 24 passing touchdowns this season, one shy of reaching 25 for the 9th time in his career. Now, here's why I included it in our implication set. The Buccaneers already locked up a playoff berth and are eliminated from the NFC South race. So what are they playing for? Well, with a win against Atlanta or a Rams loss to Arizona, Tampa Bay will secure the top wild card seeding, for which FPI is giving it an 83.6% chance. That would give the Bucs a wild card matchup with the winner of the dreadful NFC East. The Falcons are eliminated from the playoffs and are currently projected to end up with the NFL Draft's 3rd pick. They have a 76.2% chance of finishing with at least a top 5 pick. For fantasy, since week 12, Falcons receiver Calvin Ridley is the 4th highest scoring receiver in fantasy and leads the league with 575 receiving yards. Betting nugget, each of the past 5 innings between these teams and 8 of the last 9 have gone over the total. Tampa Bay, overwhelming FPI favorite, 74.3%. I'm going with Tampa Bay to win this game as well. I'm going to go 30-23. Tampa Bay beats Atlanta. So not much more to say here. Now we're going to get into the late games, and all these games, in one way or another, have implications. So let's start with our first 425 game with implications. That game being the New Orleans Saints squaring off against the Carolina Panthers from Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. On Fox, Adam Amin, Mark Schlereth, and Lindsey Zarniak had the call. New Orleans won the first meeting, am I right?
Yes.
I thought so. All right. New Orleans won in the Dome, obviously, and it snapped the tie. They were tied 25-25 going in, but with New Orleans win, New Orleans now leads 26-25 over Carolina in the all-time series. Um, they have now won 3 in a row against the Panthers. They won in Charlotte last year, 42-10, and just give me, all right, 42-10 there last year. Saints last win. The Panthers' last home win against the Saints. And it's been a theme tonight. 2016. That year's come up a lot in this game. 23-20. Carolina picks up the win. So, all right. So that's New Orleans and Carolina, and I believe New Orleans is the favorite in this one. Let me double check. Yes, New Orleans is a 5.5-point favorite to beat Carolina. So here we go. New Orleans and Carolina. There are implications in this one, more so for New Orleans, not so for Carolina. But here we go. Come on, where are you? All right. What to watch for? Carolina quarterback Teddy Bridgewater's protection will be down to a 5th left tackle. Converted guard Michael Schofield. The Saints have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL, ranking 8th in sacks with 42. It could be a long day for Bridgewater, who has struggled under duress. Bold prediction, but here's the thing, though. This bold prediction revolves around Alvin Kamara, but the news came out Alvin Kamara tested positive for COVID-19, so he is out.
He's out.
But the bold prediction was that he was going to score fewer than 6 touchdowns, and that's obvious now. But undrafted rookie Saints receiver Marquez Callaway will catch the first touchdown pass of his career as the Saints become the first team to sweep the rest of the NFC South Division in a single season. Stat to know, Kamara has 59 career touchdowns. Had he scored a touchdown, he would have become the 3rd player in NFL history to score 60 times in his first 4 seasons, joining 2 NFL Hall of Famers. Listen to this lineup, MF. He would have joined the likes of TD, Terrell Davis of the Denver Broncos, and Chargers legend LaDainian Tomlinson. TD at 61, Tomlinson at 60. We'll get to the positioning there for MF will have the New Orleans thing. FPI says for them to be the top seed, 14.7% chance likely. The Panthers are projected to have the number 8 draft pick next April. FPI is still giving them an 8.9% chance to land a top 5 spot and says they are 78.9% likely to hold in the top 10 this week. For fantasy, Panthers receiver DJ Moore has underwhelmed lately with a missed game and a pair of single-digit performances over the Panthers' past 4 games. But his best game of the season did come in Week 7 against the same Saints, 23.3 fantasy points. Betting nugget, road field advantage. The Saints are 17-6 against the spread in road games since 2018. New Orleans overwhelming FPI favorite, 72.8%. It's about 73% going with New Orleans. I'm going with New Orleans to win this game as well. 38-10. New Orleans all over Carolina. So MF, Carolina obviously playing for draft stock, but for New Orleans, they've won the NFC South. They've won the NFC South, but there's still an outside chance they can get the number 1 seed. How do they do it?
All right. Well, for New Orleans to get the number 1 seed in the NFC, they would have to win. Green Bay would have to lose. And Seattle, yes, the Seattle Seahawks, they actually do have a reason. They actually have a factor in this. They would have to win their game, and that would get New Orleans to the NFC number 1 seed. I do believe New Orleans will get at least the first part of it. They will win this game. Anthony, it's yours.
New Orleans, right?
Yes. I said New Orleans was going to win the game, yes.
Okay. So, yes, the most beautiful trophy in all of sports is out. So, I'm gushing, to say the very least. It's more beautiful than I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
But, it's because oranges are my favorite fruit, folks. That's why. So, especially the seedless babes.
Yes.
So, all right. So, with that being said, all right, this is a big one here. Huge game in the NFC playoff picture. I could probably consider this maybe the second biggest game, or maybe even the biggest. You can make an argument for both. The Green Bay Packers squaring off against the Chicago Bears from Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois, over on Fox. Kevin Burkhardt, Gerald Moose Johnston, and Pam Oliver will be on the call. If I recall, Green Bay won the first meeting at Lambeau, correct?
That is correct, Anthony. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that was a Sunday night game. So yeah, Green Bay won that one. So Green Bay now leads it. Oldest rivalry in the league. Listen to these numbers. Green Bay now leads it 99-94 with 6 ties. And Green Bay has now won 3 in a row against Chicago. They won in Chicago last year 10-3, but the Bears last beat the Packers at home the year before, 2018, 24-17. And Green Bay opening up as a 4-point favorite. So MF, there's nothing left to say except massive implications for both. Green Bay's already won the division. They're playing for the number 1 seed. Chicago's playing for their lives. What happens in this big one?
Well, here's the thing for Green Bay, a win or Seattle has to lose, and Green Bay would clinch the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. They get the first round bye. For Chicago, they can get in with a win over Green Bay, or they would need Arizona to lose. If that happens, they are in. They get the playoff berth. They clinch. They get the wild card. So this is a must win for either team. If Green Bay wants to have the home field throughout, this would be a great game to have. But this is an NFC North war. This is going to be traditional, down to the wire, down and brooding. I got to go with Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to win the game, and I do have them clinching the number 1 overall in the NFC. Green Bay wins. Anthony, there's nothing more to say. It's yours.
Yes, sir. What a game. What to watch for? Everything is on the line for the Bears and quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. Chicago last faced Green Bay in a regular season finale of this magnitude in 2013 when the Packers pulled out a late victory to clinch the division and crush the Bears' playoff hopes. Green Bay has won 18 of the last 21 in this series, and Trubisky, out of contract after the year, usually struggles versus the Packers. A Bears win puts them in the postseason for the second time in 3 years and could provide Trubisky with a second life in Chicago. Bold prediction, the Packers will prove last week's near-dominant defensive performance against the Tennessee Titans was no fluke. The Bears have scored 30 points in 4 straight games, the first time they've done that since 1965, and have averaged 35 points over the last 4 weeks, third best in the NFL in that stretch. But they'll have trouble getting past 20 against a resurgent Packers defense. Stat to know, Bears running back David Montgomery trails only Derrick Henry 698 in rushing yards since week 12. Henry 698, Montgomery 529. And his 6 touchdowns on the ground have him trailing only New Orleans' Alvin Kamara in the same span. The playoff draft picture, MF made it simple. I'll address it in case you don't know. The Bears need either a win against Green Bay or an Arizona loss to the Rams to head to the postseason. 75% chance per the FPI. The Packers are the NFC North Division champs and can clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC with a win or a Seattle loss to San Francisco. 79.8% chance. For fantasy, in these 2 teams' first meeting this season, Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers put up 25.6 fantasy points, his best game against the Bears since week 10 of 2014. Betting nugget, the Packers have covered 3 straight meetings and are 18-7 against the spread against Chicago when Rodgers starts, including playoffs. Green Bay, FPI favorite, 65.9%, about 66% for Green Bay. I'm going with Green Bay to win this one as well. I'm going to go 30-21. Green Bay beats Chicago, so they will get the number 1 seed. And that's all there is there. Next up, we have, I believe it's another Fox game. We already covered Vegas and Denver. No, it's back to us. Big game in the AFC here. This is in the AFC South Division. 4:25 kickoff. It'll be the Tennessee Titans squaring off against the Houston Texans from NRG, formerly Reliant Stadium in Houston, Texas. The legendary Greg Gumbel with Rich Gannon and Amanda Balionis. Who won the first meeting, MF? I want to say Tennessee did in Nashville.
Tennessee was the winner, yes.
I thought so. All right. So get to that in a moment. Tennessee is opening up as a 7.5-point favorite. Tennessee now leads the all-time series 20-17. Um, Tennessee won in Houston last year, 35-14. Um, but the Texans' last home win against Tennessee was the year before, 2018. That was a 34-17 final. So there's so I believe I start this one out. So this is Tennessee and Houston. What to watch for? Will Tennessee running back Derrick Henry can he top 2,000 rushing yards for the season? He's at 1,777 entering this game, 223 short, and facing the 31st ranked run defense. In Henry's past 2 games against the Texans, he has finished with more than 200 rushing yards. Bold prediction, Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill will have 300 passing yards, and both A.J. Brown, 924 yards, and Corey Davis, 945 yards, will get the necessary production to both cross the 1,000-yard receiving plateau for the season. The Titans will take advantage of a Texans pass defense that is allowing 7.6 yards per completion and an NFL worst 69.8% completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks. Stat to know, Tennessee has 15 sacks this season, the fewest sacks by a team to make the playoffs in a 16-game season is 19 by the 1979 Denver Broncos. And only 4 teams have finished a 16-game season with 16 or fewer sacks. MF will address the AFC South implications, but the Titans can also get a playoff berth another way, and we'll have MF get to that in a minute. But what does FPI say? FPI says they have a 92.3% chance to make the playoffs and a 64.8% chance to win the AFC South. The Texans are truly playing for nothing, win or lose. They're eliminated from the playoffs, but they also do not have a first-round draft pick. For what it's worth, their original pick, traded to MF's Miami Dolphins, is currently projected to be number 4 overall, with a 63.1% shot of ending up in the top 5. Rough. For fantasy, the running back on the other sideline gets the majority of headlines, but David Johnson has quietly posted his best 2 games of the season over the past 2 weeks, 28.4 points last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Betting nugget, in Tannehill starts since the beginning of last season, the Titans are 24-1 against the spread. Tennessee, the FPI favorite, 58.1%. I'm going with the Tennessee Titans to win this game, 35-20. NMF, what happens if the Tennessee Titans win? We already know what happens if they win. I'm just going to let you take it. So what are the scenarios for the Tennessee Titans when it comes to this game as far as the division and the postseason spot?
Well, here's the thing, Anthony. If Tennessee can get in, they can win the division by just winning the game. Or they would just need Indy to lose. If they win or Indy loses, then it's over. They win the division. But if Baltimore loses or Miami loses, they at least get into the playoffs via the wild card. Now, everything hinders on what Indy does. That was determined if it's a division or a wild card. Because if Tennessee loses and Indy wins the division. We'll get to them in a little bit. But I got the Titans winning. They will win the division. They will win it outright. They will not need the wild card scenario to come into play. They'll win the division outright. They'll clinch the number 4 spot. Anthony, it's yours.
And speaking of that other game, MF, here it is. The Jacksonville Jaguars squaring off against the Indianapolis Colts from Bill Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana, also on CBS. Andrew Catalan with James Lofton and Sheree Burris. They will be on the call for that one. And the spread favors the Indy. Whoa, Indy. Indy's the biggest favorite of the week. Indy's opening up as a 2-touchdown favorite. They're a 14-point favorite is Indy against Jacksonville, and rightfully so. But here's the thing, though. These two teams met opening day, week 1 in Jacksonville, and Jacksonville won. But here's the thing. Since then, Jacksonville has lost every single game since then.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll have a fun stat on that in just a minute. Indianapolis still leads the all-time series despite that loss, 24-15 in favor of Indy, because Jacksonville won in Jacksonville. The Colts have won the last 2 meetings. Colts have won the last 2 meetings in Indianapolis against the Jags. Jacksonville has not won in Indianapolis since 2017, 27-0 beatdown. And here's the fun stat before I give it to MF here. Here's the fun stat. If Jacksonville loses tomorrow, they'll be the first team since the 2001 Carolina Panthers to win their opening game and then lose every single game after that. 2001 Carolina Panthers won their opening game, but after that, MF, gone. Lost every single game, finished 1-15. If Jacksonville loses to Indy, they do the exact same thing. Win their opener, but lose all 15 in a row after that. How humiliating. But it's obvious that's going to happen. But MF, Jacksonville is nothing to worry about. They've got the number 1 overall pick and very likely Trevor Lawrence coming to town. But Indy needs to win, and they need a lot of help if they want to win the division, let alone make the playoffs.
Actually, they're going to need a lot of help just to make the playoffs itself. They would need a win. For the division. If Indy wins and Tennessee loses, they're in. They get the division. It's theirs. For Indy, for the playoffs, they would need either they would have to win, and they would have to have either a loss by the Baltimore Ravens, a loss by the the Cleveland Browns, or a loss by the Miami Dolphins. And the thing is, it's a win plus. That means if Baltimore wins, Cleveland wins, and Miami wins, Indy is out. They do not make it. It does not matter if they win this game. Because if Baltimore, Miami, and Cleveland wins, Indy still does not get in. They're on the outside looking in. And they get left behind. So, without a doubt, this is a must win for Indianapolis. They will get it. I just don't know if they're gonna get the rest. I think that's a little tough, too tough of an order for them to do. Maybe Miami would probably be the most vulnerable out of the three, but even I think Miami wins tomorrow. So I'm sorry. I think Indy's gonna get left out. They do not make the playoffs under this scenario.
All right. So with that being said, let's move on to our next 425 implication game. And here's the game that ended up getting cross-flexed to us. This is the game that was supposed to be on Fox. But remember, the Chargers and the Chiefs got cross-flexed to Fox. And in return, we got the Arizona Cardinals against the Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Where do we rank that? Where does that rank on our side of the ledger now that it's on our side?
That's a big game. Because that's an eliminator game.
So 3, would you say?
Yeah, I would say that's 3, yeah.
Because we already agreed that Miami and Buffalo and Pittsburgh and Cleveland are the 2 biggies.
Yeah, this would probably be number 3, yeah.
So drop that into 3 and drop all the other ones down. So 1 spot. All right. So I got it. So, all right. So with that said, it's the Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams from SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California on CBS. Hello, friends. Yes, he's going to be there, Jim Nantz, but Tony Romo will not be there.
No.
COVID-19 protocols. So for this game, it'll be Jim Nantz, Boomer Esiason from the NFL Today. He's going to step in for Tony Romo. And, of course, the beautiful Tracy Wolfson on the sidelines, as always. The Cardinals, Arizona, opening up as a 3-point favorite. These 2 teams met in Arizona, and the Rams actually won that game. So I remember that very vividly. So with that, let's see the series history between these 2. It goes to the Rams. The Rams add to their series lead. It's now 43-38 with 2 ties in favor of the Rams. And wow, the Rams have done pretty well. The Rams have now won 7 in a row against the Arizona Cardinals. They won in Arizona. So let's see. The Cardinals, oh wow. The Cardinals have not beaten the Rams at home since 2014. And the Rams were in St. Louis at the time. Go figure. Um, 2014, the last time. Well, actually, no, I stand corrected. This game's in LA. I'm sorry about that. Rams won there last year. The Cardinals' last win in LA was in 2000. Well, there goes that year again, 2016. That's been the theme here tonight.
Yeah, that's been the theme.
Yep, 2016. Arizona, they went into the Coliseum and they pounded the Rams 44-6. So let's see. Who starts off on this one? Do you remember?
I believe it's me, Anthony. I think you led off on the last game.
Yeah, that was the was that the Jacksonville Indy game that we just
That was
talked about?
Jacksonville Indy. Yeah, that was the last game that we did. So yeah, and I remember going second.
Okay, so all right, so it would be you. Okay. Actually, no, I didn't even give my thoughts on the Jags and the Colts.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So
but I'm pretty sure you were gonna go with the Colts anyway.
Yeah, I mean, how will their offensive tackles match up against the Jaguar pass rushers? I mean, yes, the Colts will have starting right tackle Braden Smith off the reserve COVID-19 list back for the game, but there's still a gigantic hole on the left side after the losses of veteran Anthony Costanzo with an ankle and backup Will Holden also with an ankle. And Indianapolis gave up a season-high 5 sacks against Pittsburgh last week. No better way for the Jags to boost their woeful sack numbers 18 on the year than going against a backup left tackle. That's what to watch for. Bold prediction, the Jags will sack quarterback Phillip Rivers 3 times. Rivers has been sacked only 19 times this season. His ability to get the ball out quickly is a large part of that. But with Costanzo out, the Jags will get home. Jaguars rookie defensive end K'Lavon Chaisson has come on late in the year, recording 11 of his 20 QB pressures in his last 4 games. Per the ESPN Stats and Information Research, Chaisson will get the second sack of his career on Sunday. Stats to know, the Colts are allowing 92.9 opponent rushing yards a game this season, second fewest in the NFL, and Jacksonville running back James Robinson will not play. The playoff situation, MF already mentioned it. Currently on the outside looking in, the Colts still have a 78.7% chance to play postseason football per the FBI. Better yet, FPI is giving them a 35.2% chance to even win the division. The Colts can clinch the division with a win and a Titan loss, but they can also clinch a playoff berth with a win and a loss from either the Ravens, Browns, or Dolphins. Jaguars locked in on the number 1 draft pick, win or lose. For fantasy, since returning to action in Week 13, Colts running back Jonathan Taylor has been the 3rd best fantasy running back with 91.9 fantasy points. Over that stretch, he has more rushing touchdowns than he had the season prior. The Jags are 9-1-1 against the spread against the Colts since 2015, and their only win this season came in Week 1 against these Colts as a 7-point underdog. Indy, the FBI favorite of the week, 84.1%. Indy wins, no doubt about it, 31-12. I'm going with Indy over Jacksonville. So I would actually lead off on the Cardinals and the Rams. So yeah, here we go. What to watch for? The Rams have won 7 straight against the Cardinals under coach Sean McVay, and despite an injury-depleted offense, a top-ranked defense makes 8 possible. Watch for defensive tackle Aaron Donald and cornerback Jalen Ramsey to wreak havoc against Kyler Murray and his arsenal of playmakers. In Week 10, Murray was sacked twice and limited to 173 passing yards, though he did toss 3 touchdowns. The Cardinals' defense has a chance to capitalize on a Rams offense that will be led by backup quarterback John Wolford, who will be making his first NFL start. The Cardinals will finish with fewer than 250 yards, is the bold prediction. Cardinals will finish with fewer than 250 yards of total offense in the most important game for this franchise in the past 5 years. The Rams defense is ranked 1st overall in yards a game, yards a play, passing yards a game, and passing yards a play, along with 3rd in rushing yards a game in play. With Murray dealing with a leg injury, the Cardinals offense will feel the effects, which will be compounded by the Rams' stout defense. Stat to know, Arizona wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins can become the 4th player in franchise history with 8 100-yard receiving games in a season. Rob Moore had 8 in 1997. David Boston had 9 in 2001. And Anquan Bolden had 8 in 2005. MF will have the scenarios for these two. The Rams have an 87.7% chance to make the playoffs according to FBI projections, while the Cards are at 37.3%. For fantasy, Murray Kyler Murray has 29 rushing attempts over his last 3 games, nearly doubling the 15 he had in his prior 3 games. He has only 43 rushing yards in 3 career matchups with the Rams, but at least the effort is being made to utilize his most fantasy-friendly trait. Betting nugget: the Rams have covered each of the past 7 head-to-head matchups, 6 of which were by more than a TD. Rams are the FPI favorite, 62.7%. This is very tough to call. I mean, if Jared Goff was playing, then I would definitely go with the. I would feel good about going with the Rams, but now I'm not so sure. I mean, John Wolford. I mean, I know this young man from his days in Wake Forest. He was pretty solid down there, but first NFL start, I don't know. I gotta go with the Arizona Cardinals. I gotta go with Arizona to win this one, 24-21. So, so that's all I can say on this. MF eliminator game. Why so?
Eliminator game because of the fact that it's basically if you win, you're in. If you lose, especially in the case of, here's the thing: if Arizona loses, they're gone. They're out. There's no way they can get in. It actually gives Chicago the opportunity to get in. So here's the thing: it's an eliminator game because the winner of this game goes to the playoffs. The loser of this game, it really depends, because here's the thing: if Arizona loses, Chicago goes in. If LA loses, if LA loses, they would need Chicago to lose just to get in. If Chicago beats Green Bay, then LA falls out. They're out, and that ends everything. So basically, there's no margin for error. There's a margin for error with the LA Rams. There's zero margin for error for the Arizona Cardinals. If the Cardinals lose, it's done. They're out completely. Chicago goes through, LA goes through, and that's your playoffs for the NFC. I think you're going to get an interesting dilemma. Arizona wins, and that will really put a lot of pressure on the Bears, because then we're scoreboard watching. If you're an LA Rams fan, now you're scoreboard watching, and you're hoping Green Bay handles their business and gets the job done. Because if Green Bay loses it to Chicago, LA, you're out. And boy, what a tough pill that will be for them. Because think about this: 1 year ago, a couple of years ago, LA was playing for the Super Bowl. Last year, I think they got in, and now this year they could be out. Oh man, what a tough pill for the Rams. So yeah, we'll see. We're gonna have some drama, Florio. We're gonna have a lot of drama.
Wouldn't have it any other way, man. Wouldn't have it any other way. Especially especially with this week. Oh yeah, we definitely want it. We have, I believe, one more 425 game left, and that is a matchup featuring the San Francisco 49ers squaring off against the Seattle Seahawks. Or is it the other way around? This isn't this game supposed to be in Arizona, I think?
No.
Yeah.
Or wait, who's the home? This one's actually in. Yeah, it's in Arizona. It's in State Farm.
Yeah, because San Francisco's the quote unquote home.
Yeah,
team.
they're the home team. Yeah, they're designated home.
So just wanted to get that addressed there. So all right, so it's the Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers, even though the game will be at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, home of the Arizona Cardinals, because of the Niners' COVID protocols that booted them out of Levi's. So that will be over on Fox at 4:25 with Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma, and Shannon Spake. Seattle opening up as a 6.5 point favorite. Seattle won the first meeting. Am I right?
See. Yes, 37-27.
I thought so. All right, so Seattle won the first meeting, so Seattle adds to their series lead. It's now 26-17 in favor of Seattle. Um, these two, both games these teams played last year were both five-star classics. I mean, the game in San Francisco on Veterans Day that went to overtime, and then of course Week 17 last year in Seattle. We'll never forget it when the Niners won by a yard, literally. On the nine, So Seattle won at San Francisco last year. The Niners last beat the Seahawks as the home team in 2018 in San Francisco, also an overtime game, 26-23. So MF. Actually, I got to correct you on something. The Rams did not make the playoffs last year. Remember, they were the Super Bowl runner-up, and they did not make the playoffs last year. So it would be the second year in a row if the Rams don't make it. But we already know San Francisco, they suffered the Super Bowl hangover. They're gone. They're playing for draft stock. But MF, Seattle still has an outside chance at the number one seed, and for them to get it, what do they have to do besides win?
They will also need Green Bay to lose. They will also need the New Orleans Saints to lose. If the Saints lose, if Green Bay loses, then all of a sudden, and if Seattle wins, all roads to the NFC playoffs goes through the 12th man in Seattle. And whoever thought that would even be a possibility at one point. But I do believe the Seahawks will win the game. That will put the pressure on Green Bay and New Orleans. And we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. So nothing more to say, Florio. It's yours.
What to watch for? They're a long shot, but the Seahawks still have a chance to steal the NFC's number one seed with some help elsewhere, which means they'll be hungry to finish strong here. The 49ers enjoyed playing the spoiler role last week for Arizona and would love nothing more than to make their biggest rivals' postseason path more difficult. Considering that 3 of San Francisco's 6 wins this season have come within the division, don't be surprised if the 49ers keep it closer than the last meeting between these teams. Bold prediction, Seahawks cornerback DJ Reed Jr. will make another big play against his former team. He picked off Jimmy Garoppolo in his Seahawks debut in Week 9, a game he had circled on his calendar since the 49ers waived him in August. He has played his way into a starting job at right quarterback since and has been a part of Seattle's defensive turnaround. As the team's primary punt returner, it seems only a matter of time before he breaks off a long return. Stat to know, the Seahawks have allowed an NFL low 13.7 points a game since Week 11, going 5-1 in that stretch. They allowed 29.6 a game through the first 10 weeks of the season, which ranks 28th in the league. The situation with the playoffs and the draft, MF mentioned it, but the Niners won't be returning to the playoffs. But the Seahawks have locked up the NFC West and can clinch the number one seed with a win, a New Orleans loss to Carolina, and a Green Bay loss to Chicago. Their FPI chances to be the number one seed in the NFC currently sit at 5.5%. The 49ers are currently projected to have the 14th draft pick with a 1.4% chance of clipping the top 10. For fantasy, Russell Wilson carried you through the first 2 months of the season, but on a per-game basis, he is QB 16 since Week 10, 16.2 points per game, ranking behind Indy's Phillip Rivers and Cleveland's Baker Mayfield. Betting nuggets, Seattle is 14-4 against the spread against San Francisco since 2012, including a cover in Week 8 this year. Seattle, the FBI favorite, 60.1%. I'm going with Seattle to win this game as well. I'm going to say 26-17. Seattle beats San Francisco. So not much more to say on that. I do believe we are at the main event of this Week 17, and it's the ultimate win and you're in situation. Sunday Night Football on NBC, 8:20 p.m. on NBC, featuring the Washington football team squaring off against the Philadelphia Eagles from Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, Michelle Tafoya, they will be there. And Washington opening up as a 3.5-point favorite. These two teams met in week number 1, and Washington won at FedEx Field. They beat the Eagles in that game. So with that, Washington adds to their series lead. They now lead at 86-79 with 5 ties, and that win by Washington snapped a 6-game losing streak to Philadelphia. So they won in Washington here. Um, but here's the thing, though, and the theme of the night strikes again. When was the last time Washington won in Philadelphia? GMF, what year was that?
2016?
You got it. 2016. The last time Washington went into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles 27-22. But since then, the last 3 years, Philly has owned Washington at home. So, all right. So, I believe this one. I think this one goes to me here. So,
Yep, you'll lead off.
yes, sir. So here we go. What to watch for? The Eagles set a record with 13 different offensive line combinations over their first 14 games, and further changes could be coming if left tackle Jordan Mailata isn't cleared from concussion protocol. Regardless, Philadelphia has its hands full against the Washington defense that ranks fifth in sacks with 44. Bold prediction. Regardless of starting quarterback, it'll be the defense and run game that flourish for Washington. Running back Antonio Gibson will run for 75 yards and a touchdown, and defensive end Chase Young will record 2 sacks. But maybe this is the boldest prediction. Washington will score on its opening possession for the first time all year. Stat to know, Washington has a minus 106 score differential in the first half this season, 30th in the NFL, and a plus 106 score differential in the second half, best in the NFL. That 212-point gap in differentials between halves would be the largest by any team in the past 20 seasons. We already know what happened for Washington, but the Eagles are out of it. But they are currently projected to pick at number 6 in the draft. They have a lock on the top 10 and a 40.6% chance, just about 41% chance to rise into the top 5. For fantasy, Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts has scored north of 17 fantasy points in all 3 of his starts this season, with his 75.7 points ranking 3rd at the position over that stretch. Betting nugget, Philadelphia is 3-0 against the spread as a home underdog this season and 11-4 against the spread in such situations under their head coach Doug Peterson, including the playoffs. Washington is the FBI favorite, 58.9%, about 59%. I am going with the Washington football team to rewrite the script here. Washington wins the game. Final score, I'm going to go 21-17. Washington beats Philly. And with that, the Washington football team, MF, it's very simple. Washington wins. They win it all. NFC East, that is. What else do you have?
Yeah, going into the game, I was actually going to pick Philadelphia, but now that I've heard the news of some of the players that are not going to play for the Eagles, Deshaun Jackson's out. Miles Sanders is out. That's a really bad situation for Philly. Washington wins the division. The Washington football team is going to win the NFC East. They're going to the playoffs. Anthony, we're done. Let's call it a night.
Yes, sir. So that will put the bow on this very exciting edition of Week 17 of NFL Saturday. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in. All those Saturdays that we've done this, with the exception of that Wednesday edition we did about a week or so ago. But yeah, we'll be back with you Monday night. We got Ridiculously Raw on the pipeline. The first Raw 2021 Legends Night, baby. Yes, sir. All the legends are going to be there. Hogan and Flair, so many others. And Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee will battle for the WWE Championship. Big night on Monday night. And we'll also review Friday Night SmackDown. A little spoiler alert, not as good as the previous week, but we'll see what we have to say about that. Another joint edition, so I'm be ready for that. Wednesday Night Mayhem. There is AEW Dynamite, but our primary focus is going to be on NXT because of New Year's Evil. A takeover-worthy show on the USA Network. Go figure that. Now, MF, I want to bring something up when it comes to the Thursday show. With all due respect, I would like for us to primarily focus only on the 7 big football games coming up. So, if that's all right.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, because there's 7 games, and all of them, we have 6 wild card playoff games now because of the new playoff format and the national championship of
Okay.
college football. So I know there were some other things you wanted to get into. I think we should push that back to the following week because there's only going to be 4 divisional games. So we can get into more of that hot stove stuff, and
Well, not only that, but we'll also have the NHL preview that week as well, that next week, because the NHL starts on the 13th.
that is right. Yes, that's correct. So
So we're gonna have a loaded show because we're gonna have hot stove, the divisional weekend, and we're also gonna have the NHL, the preview for the NHL as well.
yeah, so we'll get the hot stove out of the way. Then we'll do the NHL preview, the divisional games, automatically the main event.
Yeah.
So so we'll save that for the 14th. But for this week though, the 6 NFL wildcard games on Thursday, and then the main event, obviously the national championship with Alabama and Ohio State. Take a bow, MF. You were right about Ohio State. Give you all the credit in the world for that one. Me and Bullock have egg on our face, but we'll take it, man. I mean, I'm more than happy to concede that one. So we'll get into the 6 wildcard games, whatever they may be. We won't know that until this time tomorrow, obviously, and then from there we'll get into the national championship, and then Friday night, the Cerebral Smack Talk back in its traditional Friday night spot on this Friday night. MF will have that, obviously, and then we'll run the gambit again. So that's it. So until Monday night for Ridiculously Raw, this is Anthony Florio here for good old MF Michael Fletcher, and in spirit, Michael Bullock, Derek D.D. Woodson, and always in forever, Derek Forever. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah, throw the Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed rest of your weekend. And until Monday night for Ridiculously Raw, you've been watching Week 17 of Strictly Sports NFL Saturday right here on the Tone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. For everybody who's been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio, so long. Bye, everybody. Bye.